Welcome to the Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, Alternative Perspectives on Mental Health. My name is Dr. Adriana Popescu. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and leader in the field of mental health, energy psychology, addiction, trauma, and empowerment. In this podcast, we will be exploring mental health from a variety of perspectives, from the spiritual to the shamanic and beyond. What if mental illness isn't everything we think it is? What if everything we see as a pathology is actually a possibility? What else is possible with mental health?
Hi, everyone. Dr. Adriana Popescu here with you today with another episode of Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, Alternative Perspectives on Mental Health. I'm really excited to have as my guest today someone I know personally. Her name is Rhonda Hunt. She is a certified Sedona Method coach. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist, EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing specialist, a published author and speaker with a passion for helping people navigate their emotional challenges and trauma. With over 2 decades of experience in the mental health field, Rhonda has cultivated a deep understanding of the complexities of human psychology and relationships. As an LMFT, Rhonda specializes in working with individuals addressing issues such as communication breakdowns, conflict resolution, and relationship dynamics. Welcome, Rhonda.
Hi, Dr. Popescu. It's so nice to see you again.
You can call me Adriana.
Okay. Hi, Adriana.
Rhonda and I are both therapists, and we're part of a coaching group together. We're actually in a Jack Canfield coaching group, and it's been really wonderful to get to know her and her work. And I'm so excited to have a conversation with her today because she is using a modality I've always been a bit curious about that we've never really talked about on the show before, called the Sedona Method. And I think this is a timely conversation, especially your work with trauma, because you yourself have dealt with some really traumatic experiences recently with the LA fires. But let's just start with your story in general. Like, how did you even come to be doing the work that you're doing today?
Okay, sure. So I grew up in a very dysfunctional family, and I won't get into all the details of that, but I feel like as an adult, I just had a real drive to heal myself. So I became a therapist. I became a marriage family therapist, actually not until my early 30s, but I was a teacher before that. Anyway, and so started working in the field of mental health as a therapist. And I liked it well enough. Wasn't in love with the field, actually. And then I had my own life crisis, if you will, about 10 years into my career. And I found the Sedona Method in sort of a very roundabout way. I actually found it through that movie, The Secret,
Oh, yeah.
which Jack Canfield was a part of. Well, the person who wrote the book on the Sedona Method, Hale Dwoskin, was also in that movie. And that's how I discovered the Sedona Method. And I listened to his tape series. Well, back then it was CDs, but now everything's, digital. But anyway, I listened to 20 CDs and I was really drawn to it. I really took to it. I went to a conference and I was pretty much hooked on it at that point. And so as I was using it in my own personal life, I realized this is so gold. This is so golden. Like, I need to start using this with my clients. So that's sort of the trajectory of me using the Sedona Method, personally and professionally.
So many of us have the same story, right? That's how I got into the holistic methods, energy psychology and such as well, is through my own health crisis, right? So
Yes.
we understand. Now, tell us a little bit about the Sedona Method. It has been around for quite some time, right?
Yes. I'd love to tell you about it. It's my favorite thing to talk about. So a man named Lester Levinson created the Sedona Method back in the 50s. Okay, this was before people were talking about emotions. He was a physicist, actually. And so he had a very scientific brain. And he had a lot of health problems. He had a lot of stress in his life. He was actually sent home to die. He had 2 coronaries, and his doctor said, "We can't help you. Like, you're just like, go home. Like, you're going to die." And after dealing with that, he just thought, what have I got to lose? I'm going to go inside myself and I'm going to see what's going on. So he just did a lot of self inquiry, and he basically came up with the Sedona Method, which is what he designed within himself to learn how to heal himself. He basically created the Sedona Method to save his own life. I know, isn't that cool?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was in the 50s, in the 1950s. And so fast forward to the 1970s, he was teaching people. He was very informal about how he taught people. He'd meet people in coffee shops and tell them about this process that he created. And he met a man a young man at the time named Hale Dwoskin, who is now the, face of the Sedona Method. And Hale has been working with Lester. Well, he worked with Lester about 20 years. Lester did die in the 90s. So, fast forward, he lived 40 more years after he was sent home to die. And so Hale has taken, when Lester died, he gifted Hale the copyrights for the Sedona Method. And Hale sort of popularized it and taken it further. That's sort of the history of the Sedona Method.
Does the name have any particular meaning other than,
Okay. Yeah, now the name, that's a good question.
of Sedona?
Because, okay, so Lester is a New Yorker as well. Hale is a New Yorker, but eventually Lester moved to Sedona, Arizona. And so I think, I don't even know if it had an official name. I know they would call it like Mind Freedom was something, but that didn't really describe it very well. So once he started working out of Sedona, he just thought, that's a really good name for this process. I'll call it the Sedona Method.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like it because when I think of Sedona, I think of it as sort of a very special, I mean, aside from being beautiful, it's also very magical. There's a lot of like magical energy. And from what I understand of Sedona Method, it is rather simple, it's rather elegant, and maybe one might say even a bit like magical in terms of like the change that it can create for folks.
Yes, I love your description of it. Yeah, I 100% agree. I would call it like a tool or a process, and it is very simple yet very profound. Just as like breathing is very simple, we don't have to think about it; it just happens, right? But we would die without breath. So, not that we would die without the Sedona Method, but the Sedona Method helps a lot with life, and it helps a lot with, I would say, for the purpose of our conversation today, focusing on emotional freedom. It
Mm-hmm.
really helps with emotional freedom. And that's the beauty of it. It's a great way to take care of your feelings.
Mm-hmm. Now, I would think this is a bit timely, referencing back what I said before. Um, if it's okay to share, with the audience, you were very directly impacted by the fires in LA. How has a technique like this helped you to get through the just unimaginable trauma of that's like still ongoing, right?
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, in fact, well, just so your audience knows, my house did not burn down, but it was in the neighborhood that is flattened. I mean, completely destroyed. We lived on this little cul-de-sac, and somehow the cul-de-sac survived, but everything around it burned down. And so, with all the smoke damage and just even the damage to the utilities and things like that, we have not been able to move back home. We were displaced. We've been displaced since January 8th. And I can honestly say, if I didn't have the Sedona Method, I would be a wreck. I would be a mess. I'm sure I would be a puddle on the floor. Having the Sedona Method, and I've been doing it for a little over 10 years now, those tools have really helped for me to take care of myself during this very stressful and time that has been a crisis in my life. Definitely. And I found the Sedona Method originally about 10 years ago when I was in another personal crisis, and it was something I was really drawn to. It was something I'd never heard about before. And as we go into the process itself, it was it sort of opened my eyes to ways that you could use this process to heal yourself. I'm coming from a therapy background, and yet this process was something I didn't learn, at therapy school, so to speak. So,
Yeah, I want to comment on that for a moment before we get into it, because we are going to take the audience through a little guided example, which I love that we're giving people, a direct experience of this. Um, in traditional psychology, we're kind of basically talk therapy, right? We talk to people about their problems. We help them explore their history, their childhood, the experiences that have happened to them that have shaped them, and that's wonderful. And having a connection with someone that you can trust and feel safe with, and be vulnerable with, and share your feelings with, like, that is a huge part, we know, of the healing power of therapy. But I know for myself as a therapist, very early on, I was clear that talk therapy alone was not going to be sufficient for really getting to the deep, like, core of people's issues, and to create shifts that were big enough to change these patterns, right? Because we have these, like, patterns, like repetitive behaviors, right? Like, I work with addiction, for example, repetitive patterns in thinking, like negative thinking loops, like cognitive distortions, we might call them. How has having a technique like this, or you also, we mentioned, work with EMDR, which is a well-known trauma treatment. How have you found that having techniques like this enhance your therapy practice, or go beyond maybe some of the limitations of traditional talk therapy alone?
yeah, that's a great question. And what I love about the Sedona method is that it is sort of a self-help, self-directive tool. Once you learn the basics, which I'm going to teach you today, once you learn the basics, you really can take it as far as you want to take it. You can use it every day. It's accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so it really is a beautiful tool for you to take care of yourself. Sometimes it's nice to have another person facilitate. Thus, I am a Sedona Method coach. And especially for more complex issues, that is helpful. But for day to day, you can use it for yourself. You don't need anyone else to help you. You don't need a sounding board. You don't need another person. It is totally self sufficient.
I love that, because similar, I like having the giant toolbox as well. And I love giving people tools, right? Whether we call them emotional self regulation tools or whatever it is, self care tools, things people can do, even just like regulating their nervous system, kinds of tools, things we can use on our own, that if we use over and over and over again, what I find gives people a sense of empowerment, right? Like, when I know I've got tools that can change the way I'm thinking, can change the way I'm feeling, can bring me a sense of peace and calm when I feel, agitated or overwhelmed, over time, if I keep doing that over and over again, I start to recognize, oh, I don't really have to live in so much fear and anxiety of, like, terrible things happening, because I've learned that even if terrible things do happen, kind of like what you're going through right now, with the fires, it's like, I know I can get through it because I have these tools. And if I need additional support, I can reach out to folks like ourselves who are trained in these methods and can go even deeper into whatever needs to happen for the healing to occur. Because, of course, we all have blind spots, right?
Yes,
When I
yes.
first started learning some of the energy psychology tools, I tried to be my own therapist and process, like, every horrible thing I'd ever been through in my whole life, and I got myself a little overwhelmed and flooded. There is definitely a time and space to go to a trained professional, to work with them, maybe in a deeper, or the things you don't quite see. But for the day to day, like you said, self care, I love giving clients these kinds of tools. So thank you.
It is invaluable.
Yes, yes. And the empowerment piece is huge, because I feel like that's what we as therapists, one of the greatest gifts we can give our clients is the gift of, empowering themselves.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay, so how do we get started?
Okay, so I'm going to do a really quick exercise just to give people an understanding of how you let go. So the Sedona method is about letting go of unwanted emotions, letting go of unwanted thoughts, letting go of unwanted beliefs, even letting go of unwanted behavior and patterns. It's really letting go of any internal limitation. And so this is kind of a nice exercise. Like, well, but how do I do it? What do you mean by let go? Because that's a really popular saying in our society right now. Well, just let it go. Like, well, what do you mean by that? So we like to use a pen as an example. It's just a metaphor. And it's just to have something concrete to hold on to. So let's say this pin is an emotion. Let's say it's anger or anxiety, which are common emotions that we all experience almost every day. So what we often do is we hold on to our emotions. We try to manage them, we try to stuff them, we suppress, we repress, we hold on to it, we ignore it, we pretend it isn't there, we kind of contract around it. That's why people have gut issues, right? And that's why people get tension headaches, and so on. We tend to contract. And now, my hand hurts. I'm gripping this pin really tight and my hand does hurt. But after a while, you just start to think, well, that's just what it feels like. That's like normal. But if you could just understand that, like, this pin, which is representing the feeling, anxiety or anger, is not attached to me, I actually don't have to grip it. I don't have to hold on to it at all. In fact, if I can just open to it, and the Sedona method is a lot about opening to, some synonyms would be welcoming, allowing. And so if you open to the emotion, you can see that you can see and experience it's not attached to you. And you can move it around and you can decide at some point that you want to let it go, and you let it go because it's not you. It's energy. Energy moves, and you can help that energy move right along. And so that's the basis of the Sedona method process. And what I would love to do is I'll share the basic questions, because these are questions people can start with right away. 3 questions that you ask yourself. Could I let it go? Would I let it go? When? And when is an invitation to let it go now, if you can. And those are the 3 basic questions that you would ask yourself. So let's say I'm experiencing, and this really happened, I was very angry at one of my children. We were driving in the car and my child did something that I thought was unacceptable, and I felt very angry about it. And I'm driving and my child's in the back seat, and part of me wanted to just like rage, just like turn around and yell and express my feelings, which sometimes expressing feelings is a good thing. But in this moment, that would have been very damaging to my child. And so I'm driving and I'm using the Sedona method in my head, not out loud, asking myself the releasing questions. I was asking, first I acknowledged my anger, that I'm really angry right now at my child. And I was like asking myself, could I let it go? And I answered inside my own head, no. Would I let it go? No. When? And not now. And I went through those questions about 3 or 4 times inside my head. But by the 5th time, I was like, yes, actually, I could let it go. I do want to let it go, and I want to let it go now. I don't want to let it ruin my day. And that's a very simple way that I use the Sedona method. These are the basic questions. Could I let it go? Would I let it go? When? And if your clients, your listeners only use those 3 questions today, any day this week, I think they'll find it really helps them release whatever emotion might be arising in their consciousness. But I would like to take you, if we have time, and we can do it now or a little later, like to take you through a little more of a sophisticated releasing series.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to do that without giving you the basics first.
Well, yeah, and I'm guessing that maybe the more comprehensive version covers this, but yeah, it's the thing that I wonder about is exactly what you said, which is the resistance, right? Yeah, a lot of us know, well, I could let this go, especially if it's like I find this with anger or resentment, right? Like I could let it go, but I don't want to. Like, it's this sort of justifiable, righteous, like, but it was wrong and it shouldn't have happened, and they need to, you know, maybe they need to suffer. Or I think we sometimes will use anger as a way to like create a boundary. Well, I don't want to let it go because then they're going to think that what they did was okay. Or then they're going to think they can just walk all over. It's like that forgiveness concept, right? That people can get hung up on. So yeah, how do you deal with that when it comes up?
What a great question. You are like right on target here, spot on. Um, the Sedona Method is pretty much about letting go of all resistance. Of course, we have most of us walk through every day with so much resistance to life, right? Resistance to the red light, whatever, resistance to the loud noise, resistance to the fact that I have to take care of myself. It can feel like a burden to take care of the body. I mean, resistance to work. And so the beautiful thing about the Sedona Method is it's really designed to allow for resistance, but then to let it go. Because resistance, you're right, it's built into probably almost everything.
And it just makes it worse, right? What you resist persists. Like energetically, you said the contraction. And I think this is like even a Buddhist concept. I forget what the exact name of it, but it's like you already have the pain of the thing you're feeling, and then on top of it, you're resisting it, which only makes it worse. It intensifies it. And when the energy is contracted, of course, then it's harder to actually let it go. I was even thinking when you were talking about bodies, like how much we hold so much resistance in our bodies, and some people's bodies are just full of, it's like their armor, a suit of armor, right? Like hard, the knots, that go away and all of that. Because we hold it all inside. So I love that we're talking about the very thing that's eating so many of us up.
Yes, the Sedona Method is about the third alternative to handling life. One is suppression, one is expression, and then the Sedona Method offers the third response, which is to release. And so I think that's why it's so lovely. It's like this third alternative that society definitely is becoming more aware of this concept. Back in the 50s, no clue. Even the 70s, that there was a movement, things were starting, right? And now we're definitely a lot more conscious, but some people still don't know what that means. And that's why the Sedona Method is so beautiful, because it's like a bridge. It's like something practical that help you get from A to B.
Hmm. Yeah, love it. Yeah, so yeah, let's what is the more sophisticated or elaborate?
Okay, yes. So I'm going to walk you through a release. It's often like you would think of a guided meditation. Um, However, it's inquiry questions. So the words have are questions. And so obviously I'll be leading you. It'll be like a guided meditation. You won't be answering out loud. You'll just be answering within yourself. And so often we do group releases. And that is what I'm going to do with you now. And your listeners can do it with us. And they can answer these questions within themselves. And it's, again, just allowing whatever comes up to come up in awareness. And I want to just say, try to answer yes or no. And no is perfectly acceptable. We all have resistance. So if that's what's coming up, if resistance is coming up in that moment, just within yourself, answer no. Because honestly, some of the best releasing is when you answer no. So there's no right or wrong. Like you don't have to say yes in order to release. Okay. But try to say yes or no, not maybe. But if you say maybe, that's fine too. There's really no right or wrong. Um, some people like to close their eyes when they're releasing, just because they like to turn inward and they like to sort of, you know, filter out whatever's going on outside of themselves. But it's not necessary. If you like to keep your eyes open, you can keep your eyes open. I'm going to keep my eyes open right now. But You can feel free to do what is comfortable for you. I'm going to take you through a round of this release, and then we can talk about it, see how you liked it.
Wonderful.
Okay. So, what is a feeling or belief that doesn't let you rest or be at peace? And you can answer this just within yourself. What is something that isn't letting you rest or be at peace? And in this moment, can you welcome that feeling or that belief? And could you just let it be here now? Is that feeling or belief bringing you a sense of peace? Is that feeling or belief bringing you what you want in life? Are you interested in or open to allowing that feeling or belief to soften and relax? Would you consider allowing it to soften or relax? When would you be open to it releasing and for you to feel more free? Would you allow it to release now? Okay. And so that's one round of a releasing question. How was that? How did you experience it?
I liked it. I liked it almost more than I think the three questions, even though that's simple, because I feel like this is sort of easing. The image I have is of a horse. You know, when you have a horse, you're trying to take him by the lead and get him to go somewhere, and he's kind of not wanting to. I could see where, like, if you're just doing the three questions, especially for what I picked, which I'm happy to share with the audience because I think it's very many people are feeling this way.
Okay.
But like, I picked it's just sort of anger and frustration about what's going on in our world politically here in the United States right now. And if you had asked me, are you would you let go of this anger? Could you, and when? I'd be like, yeah, I could, but I don't want to because I'm upset, and this is not okay. It's like, our democracy is falling apart, and people aren't getting it, and all you get into all the reasons and justifications. But when you did it the second way, it almost is like, instead of trying to force the horse to get him to go where I want him to go, I felt like I was like more meeting the horse where he's at. Like you're not ready to let go, because you were very soft in how you were asking it, and how you were asking it, I was like, yeah, I can see how this isn't serving me. I can see how this is just, if I'm wanting to stay angry and fight back, it's kind of more of the same, right? And I'm aware that in and of itself needs to change if we're going to change things around here. All of us being angry at each other is why we got in this mess in the first place, in part. I see sort of the logic of that. And then the only place where I really got tripped up was at the end when you said, would you do it now? And I was like, and I did get to a sort of a maybe, and then maybe in the near future, right? I could see where I'm more open to it than I would have been just done the first three, the basic three questions. I was more receptive to letting it go, seeing that it doesn't serve me. And really right now, maybe I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. If I was working with someone, I would ask, is there any remaining of that feeling or belief here now? And you'd say yes. And then
Yes.
we'd go through another round. And so we probably, if I was working with you individually, or even if I was doing a group release, but not on your podcast, I'd probably go through it 3 times. And then, or however many times the individual needs it, until they feel like complete.
Interesting, because I, as a therapist, I would be called to want to go to, okay, what is it then that's holding you back from letting it go? And then I already was aware for me, oh, this is going to tap into some of my old stuff. This is about fighting. This is about fighting for what's right. This is about things that happened in my childhood or my ancestry, things that have happened culturally, things that have happened in other lifetimes, right? It taps into this wellspring of sort of personal and collective unconscious or shadow stuff. And like we could spend, multiple sessions just going through all of
Years,
that.
actually.
Right? So
Yeah.
that was my tendency to want to like look at that. But what is it about the repetition of the exact same wording and questions? What do you think is happening with that?
I think it keeps one focused on the releasing. It doesn't let you get into the stories.
Ah,
And that the Sedona method really is about letting go of stories. So let's just say I was working with you one on one, and it's okay if the stories come up. I
mhm,
would let the stories come up with you, but then I would release on the stories. And
mhm.
so we would get you to that place of letting go of needing to tell the story.
Right, because that's keeping us stuck in the past.
Exactly.
And that's a big
Exactly.
part of why the thing is happening in the world right now that I'm upset about is too many people are holding on to the past. Like, you know, what your people did to my people 1,000 years ago, or this piece of land we've been fighting over for forever, or whatever.
Yes. No, exactly. So
Mhm.
The Sedona method is very big on letting go of stories. Yeah,
Interesting.
which is very different from talk therapy. In talk therapy,
Yeah.
we let our clients tell their stories.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
And who would I be? What comes up for me is the question of the identity thing, because we get attached to the stories as if they're our identity. Like if I start talking about fighting and fighting about what's right, I get into a lot of my sort of identity as a fighter, as a rebel, as a warrior. I'm a spiritual warrior, and I have had many, many lifetimes of fighting for what's right, fighting for the light, so to speak, and and that's why I always resonate with movies like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, like that type of story, and I feel, like almost even a sense of pride, and so who would I be if I let that go? I would think that maybe comes up for people.
Oh, yes, for sure. I mean, yes, of course, we identify with our stories. We identify with our causes. We identify with our emotions, even. We identify with our patterns and behaviors. We think that's who we are. At its core, the Sedona method really is about letting go of that which you are not
Mm,
and uncovering that which you are. And what Lester Levinson uncovered in his discovery of this process is that at our core, we are love.
yeah, it gets us to a more spiritual place, right? That's what I'm getting.
Definitely. And so, all of these things that you mentioned, that's maybe what's happening, but
Hmm.
that's not who you are. And so,
Hmm.
the Sedona method really is about letting go of that which you are not, letting go of those logs that are damming up the river of love and allowing love to flow.
Hmm. Do you ever have people do this, like as a written process where maybe they write out their answers to the questions?
Okay, thank you. You are good at interviewing. You're just bringing all these things up that I want to talk about. Um, there is actually a workbook. I love the workbook. I used it so much when I first found the Sedona method. And and you use the paper and the pen as like a releasing partner. And so
Mm,
yes, writing it down with paper and pen, there is a workbook. I think you can get it off of the website and it's really helpful.
yeah, because it's going to tap into, I would think, some of the things that you're not even conscious of that are like standing in the way of the release. Like, no, especially if it's a hard no, no, I don't want to let it go, and da da da. Well, sometimes writing it out might bring to the light what that is, and then maybe, oh, okay, some light bulb goes off, and Yeah, I can see where that's actually not serving me. That's really cool. I could even also see doing it where you record, like if you want to do it in the more like you the way you did it with us, like replaying like the clip we just did, or recording your own voice in the voice recorder, on your phone, and then like listening to it in that kind of way. Like I would imagine there's like an infinite array of ways to do this.
There are for sure. There's actually an app called iRelease. It's free.
Mhm.
It was designed by not Hale Dwoskin actually, but his colleagues who he works with closely, Tim and Annie, who are also Sedona Method instructors and coaches. They created this app, iRelease. Download the app, and they have wonderful voices. They have actually, they are my coaches as well. I use them for my own coaching, and that app has helped me a lot. They have different, like, starting your day, anxiety, and ending your day, and different topics that you can release on with them.
Mhm.
If people like that.
I think about the power of this not only is individual, of course, but like the power of the groups. There's a lot of I'm sure you've noticed this. I mean, there's been a movement for quite some time to do healing work in groups. Like when people get together and pray or meditate together, there's this like, exponential sort of effect. Lynn, what is her name? Lynn McTaggart, I believe, with the power of eight. When you gather eight people together that are all focusing like their intention on one person's healing. How have you with groups, this type of thing? Because you mentioned that.
Yeah, no, it is. You're right. It is very powerful, like exponentially powerful in groups. Um, well, I highly recommend, if people are interested in this, to actually go to a Sedona Method retreat led by Hale Dwoskin. Life changing, amazing, and that's when a group of us, get together. There are smaller groups too. Some of the other coaches and instructors do their own groups and meetings. I actually have a support call that I will be doing once a month, the third Thursday of every month. And uh, we do that on Zoom, and you can have your camera on or camera off. You don't have to show your video if you don't want to. And we do group releases, and we also do one-on-one assistance. So if someone's having an issue coming up, they can actually call in and talk about the issue, and we can help them release. And it's very powerful, and it usually helps everyone in the group
Yeah. Yeah. I
because,
mean,
as you pointed out, there's so many commonalities with all of us. We all are having the same human experience.
yeah. We can all relate, and we're all part of the quantum field. I mean, in energy psychology with tapping, they call it borrowing benefits, right?
Mm,
Even though the facilitator, for example, might be working with one person in the group on a specific issue, everyone else is tapping along because somewhere in your world, you've probably had that energy come up or had that experience. And at the very least, when you're also clearing yourself, like we're magnifying the field, and it's contributing to everyone in the room. And I think of that again in the context of even my issue I was working on in the process, which is the world is in a pretty effed up place right now. And what if more of us were doing this work? I feel so strongly that it is a time of healing. It is an ugly time right now in the world. It's seemingly ugly, it's seemingly catastrophic. But I think it's really speaking to the shadow work that has not been done.
by the
Personally,
mass consciousness, yeah.
advanced consciousness, right? So if we do this work for ourselves with our own personal histories, and then we broaden that out to our family history, our ancestral history, we broaden that out to like a whole culture or group of people, and then we're talking like the whole world, and then we can get really into woo woo. We can get to other lifetimes, other dimensions, other universes, right? Because this stuff is so vast, but it's still, we're all part of one quantum field. And so as the butterfly is flapping its wings over here and the effects are felt over here, what if this is the key to creating more peace, more love, more consciousness, and more remembering, like you said, of like our true essence, which is love, which is light, which is not this darkness, this anger, this hatred, this whatever it is we're working ourselves through right now.
Mm-hmm. Agreed, 100%. Definitely Lester Levinson, who created the Sedona Method, is on board with that. I think he said, I'm probably botching it, but one man hidden in a cave who has only love in his heart is doing more good for the world than someone who's out in the world doing good. That if we can bring love to the world, that's the most important thing we can do to change it.
Yes, I fully am with you. Wow. This has been so cool, Rhonda. Thank you so much for like especially guiding us through the process. I love having like real life examples that we can use. And again, especially in this such difficult time. I mean, just we don't even have to get into it, but like people are struggling in so many different ways. I think more than ever, we need tools, but simple tools because people are overwhelmed. People don't have time. Some people don't have the resources to go to therapy and dig deep and all that. But this is so lovely because it's just you could do it in 5 minutes and even if it's not like I'm fully ready to let this go, but if I can soften around it, if I can bring down the intensity of it, then I can get through my day. I could take a breath. I can like not be raging driving down the road like
Yeah,
freaking out.
totally. Yes.
um so if people want to find out more about Sedona, if they want to find out more about you and your work, where should they go?
Okay. First and foremost, sedona.com. And there's a lot of resources there. That workbook I was talking about. You can read Lester's story, that's on there. You can see what workshops are coming up. Sign up for that email. There's a monthly free support call with, the main Sedona Method group. And then some of us coaches also have support calls. I mentioned my support call earlier. You can go to my website, which is radicalgreatness.com. And you can just send me your email, send me a little note that you want to be on the support call, and I'll add you to my email list. My support call is the third Thursday of every month at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And we do group releases and we work one-on-one with people. And it's a great way to get support, free support. There's a lot of resources out there. There is a book. It's just called The Sedona Method, if you're interested as well. And I do highly recommend it. I think it'll change your life.
Wonderful. You're doing such amazing work out there, Rhonda. It's been such a
Thank
joy
you. You
to be
are
with.
too.
Oh, thank you. I think we're all here exactly where we need to be as at the time to try to bring a little bit more light and love into the world. So if you have listened to this podcast, thank you for tuning in. If you've been inspired, please do share this. Share this with someone who might be struggling. Share it on your socials, like it, subscribe to it, rate it, review it, whatever. All the things you can do to help get this information out there because now more than ever, the world is in need of tools like this. They need this information. People are lost and struggling, and there is hope and there is light. So thank you so much, Rhonda. Thank you so much, audience. And see you next time on Kaleidoscope of Possibilities.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, Alternative Perspectives on Mental Health. This has been Dr. Adriana Popescu. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe and share with others. To find out more about me, my guests, and more, please visit my website at adrianapopescu.org. See you next time.